Welcome to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and today we're discussing revelations that the RCMP has used spyware on Canadians during investigations, as well as the legal and privacy concerns around this revelation. On-device investigation tools, or audits, enable police to access a phone or computer without a person knowing. This type of spyware allows the user to do everything from intercept messages and phone calls and even turn on the phone camera and microphone. One of the most infamous types of this technology is a program called Pegasus. The RCMP says it has not used Pegasus specifically, but it has used other similar technologies in 32 investigations since 2017. Is the use of this technology by police in Canada legal? If it is, should it be? And what privacy laws exist to protect us from government surveillance and spyware? We're joined today to discuss this topic with the Canadian Civil Liberties privacy expert, Brenda McPhail. Brenda, thanks so much for joining us today. What more can you tell us about this revelation about the RCMP's use of spyware technology?
Well, we still, despite the fact that there was a highly unusual summer sitting of the Parliamentary Committee on Privacy, Access to Information and Ethics, know relatively little more than we did at the point that we first heard about this when a question by a Conservative MP was answered on an order paper that was tabled very, very quietly in May of this year. And the RCMP, for the first time, revealed that they had been using this technology. An alert reporter caught sight of that order paper and reached out to a number of people, including me at CCLA, and eventually broke it near the end of June.
So we know that the RCMP says that they have not used Pegasus specifically, which is kind of a famous piece of technology that's been used by sort of totalitarian state actors. And we know that they say that specific program hasn't been used, but do we know what program they have used?
We do not. It's helpful to know that Pegasus, which is kind of the poster child for the potential for these tools to be misused, because as you say, authoritarian governments are well known to have been using them to spy on political dissidents, human rights defenders in their territories and globally.
And I think even corporate actors. I think it's been used on senior members of large American companies even.
Yes, also it's been used for commercial espionage, and it's been used by those governments not just against their own citizens, but for example, officials in embassies. So people in the U.S. embassy, people from the U.S. in embassies are also known to have been targeted.
So we know it's been used in 32 investigations. Do we know anything about those investigations, about whether warrants were obtained for its use? I'd have to assume that a warrant was obtained if this was used by the RCMP.
Yeah, so the RCMP refused to tell the committee what investigations had been completed or were in progress that were using those tools. They did provide a sample of a warrant application of the kind that they would use. And they did say that they only ever used this tool with a warrant, and actually included the information that they admitted that it would be contrary to Canadian law and to the Charter if they were to ever use it without a warrant. So
Right. Yeah, of course, we have a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. And generally that involves, although in not all cases, it involves a search with a warrant. So if since the police did obtain a warrant for these cases, is that sufficient to protect the people who were surveyed from their right being violated? Is a warrant good enough, or is there something inherently unreasonable about this use of this type of technology?
that is exactly the question that we should all be asking, and that we should start demanding widespread public debate and conversation about. Spyware allows potentially unfettered access to everything on the devices that we rely on to go about our daily lives. Everything in any cloud account connected to that device. Everything that we say or do, to the extent that police can also turn on the microphones or use the cameras on these devices. Professor Ron Diebert from the Citizen Lab called this wiretap on steroids.
Yeah, seriously. Brenda, we've got to go to commercial break, but we will be right back.